Welcome to DJN TV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby! Yeah. Good evening and welcome to Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. But right now, Ben is just bouncing back in. Hang on a sec. We're going to flip over to Ben. And what's that? There we are. And Ben, I think we are there. Yes. Excellent.
Hey.
Excellent. Ben, the hardest working man in the industry tonight. He is everywhere. He's like Visa.
Getting my reps in tonight, that's for sure.
Exactly. And sometime tonight he'll actually see his family after he's been online. Dad's in the studio again. Yeah, it's one of those nights.
You know what? It's a sacrifice I can easily make because I've been home so much more and I've been on the road. I've had a lot of wonderful family time. So, this is no problem. Just finished I don't even want to call it a marathon because that implies it was, it was long, but it was really enjoyable. The DJ of the Year contest that Barry Kay and Jordan and Jason and everybody put together. And wow, we've got some talented people in this industry. It was a lot of fun. I think they're going to do it again next year. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this on your channel, John, but forgiveness and permission, right?
No, we're good. We're good.
Hey, if you're one of our viewers, you're probably better than good chance you're a DJ. You should hop over there and enter. If you're one of our pro audio professionals that's watching, you should just go watch this thing and see how much talent there is out there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was definitely neat to watch there. I just caught the end of it. I didn't even realize it was going on. I know Barry and Jordan had talked to me about it, but it's like all of a sudden I hear that, oh, Ben's judging tonight. Oh, I didn't know they were doing it. So
I was just a guest judge, and I enjoyed that a lot because one, I didn't have the pressure of having to put scores on these guys, which is good because we were down to the final 6 and they were dynamite. But two, we had a tremendous panel of judges that was doing a good job. I just got to throw some thoughts in there, and I got to hold up and give away the golden microphone.
You did. So. I saw that you had the trophy. That was pretty awesome. Now they're never going to get it from you because they'd have to find your up in northern Minnesota, and most of them probably have no idea where Bemidji, Minnesota is.
I just want to hold on to it for a little bit because I'll never win one. So, exactly. I just want to hold on to it for a little bit. I just want it to be mine for a day.
So Ben, we're going to jump into tonight's topic. We're going to keep tonight's show shorter than typical because we've got Brian and Jay that are going to be coming right behind.
It's like, what? I got another show tonight?
One more.
You're really getting your mileage out of me here.
So Ben, right now, the drive-in theaters, the outdoor theaters things are a big thing. Some people are doing it really well. Some people are finding out that what they thought isn't going to work. And I wanted you to just kind of give us some guidelines and show us some things that would work if we were approached by our community, which is going to be happening and is happening, to do an outdoor theater at a park or something.
There were a few things that came to my mind. As always, technical is going to be my area of focus. So we could talk a bit about necessary screen size. We're definitely going to talk about how much brightness you're going to want for your projector. We can talk a little bit about, actually, I think we're going to talk a lot about projection distance. If you've got a big screen, where does your projector have to be? We'll explain, what those lens ratios are and that sort of thing. And then I've got a few other things that I want to throw in. Well, of course, we'll talk about audio a little bit. I'm kind of just planting these seeds here. Yeah. You can decide which order we want to go in. And then I've got some thoughts from my friend Ernie, Big Ern. He and Aaron are just doing this, I think, better than I shouldn't say better than anybody, but best I've seen for sure. And one of the things they've done is really neat. They've not focused on the big venue. They focused on the backyard venue, and they're getting tremendous weekday work. I think this is something that will have legs after the pandemic is over, which is hopefully soon. And they've got some cool ideas, and we'll talk about that too. So Excellent. Where do you want to start, John?
Well, let's start at the most important part. If you're having an outdoor theater experience, what snacks do you serve?
Well, I think popcorn's a must. I think you got to have popcorn. First of all, here's two things. And I'm going to steal this right out of the Big Ern playbook, but popcorn is really cheap. I grew up like a mile from the Jolly Time plant, in Iowa. So popcorn is really cheap, right? You buy a little bit of kernel, it makes a big bag, but it's just a staple for movies. You got to have it. I believe I'm stealing this from his playbook too. He should have done this show, not me. He's too busy actually doing.
Yeah, he's probably making money where you and I are.
Yeah, exactly. He's out making money right now. I'm just
base,
sitting here talking. But he staples a business card to the popcorn bags, which maybe is a cool idea. Again, I think that's now as far as other snacks. This is where maybe you could have some of those dollar candies. I'd recommend, or even just like fun size candies. Individual packaged ones would be probably the way I would go. My wife and I disagree strongly, though, on which candy to get in a movie. So if we ever go back to a movie, we'll have to,
Yeah, and these are important things we have to decide. So we'll have to come back to this. We'll table this one until we get some more input.
Okay.
So let's start. Obviously, these being able to see is critical when it comes to an outdoor movie. Let's talk size, let's talk projectors, and let's talk distance.
So the AIA. I think it's American Institute of Architects. Anyway, it's been a while. It's to pull that one out of the cobwebs in the back of my head. They recommend that the width of the screen be roughly half the depth of the room. That can be a bit big at times, I think, but it has to be big enough for everybody to see effectively. So, what Ernie's doing in a backyard, obviously you could get away with a smaller screen. What I've seen a few other people, I know my friend Aaron's doing these things and doing a great job too, is they'll put up 2 screens. So if you can't have one really big screen, have a couple of smaller screens, particularly if you're doing an actual drive-in, that sort of thing. And screen size is important, obviously, so that people can see the movie, but it's also going to dictate what you're going to need for projection. And we tend to measure the amount of light needed in foot lamberts. Usually, if I was giving one of my video presentations, this is where I'd have some cute little slides with Lambert, the sheepish lion from Disney, because nobody has any idea about that movie. Yeah. I was so excited they actually had a poster for Lambert at Disney. I was like the one little nugget. But anyway, we can't put him up on our show probably for licensing reasons.
There would be issues.
Yeah. Or we probably can't sing the song either. Lambert, the sheepish lion. Anyway, it has nothing to do with that. These are foot lamberts, and they're going to give us an idea of how much light we need. Now, the way we calculate our foot lamberts is we take the ANSI lumens of your projector divided by the screen area in square feet. So here's a couple examples. I wrote these down just so we can fly through the show. We're going to use a 10-foot screen because it ends in 0, and that makes math really easy. And I want this to correlate so that people can, kind of take this and the ideas that you learn, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to use a lot of numbers that end in 0.
Nice.
So a 10-foot wide screen with a 16:9 aspect ratio, which is going to be one of your most common ones that we're going to use here. That's going to give us 56.7 square feet. 10 times 5.67 equals 56.7 feet. Right?
Sure.
So if we had I've got 2 projector models that I'm going to use for our projection distances, and so I use the same one. One I really like is the Optima EH515T because it is low cost, but it's bright and it's high def. If you're doing really big screens and pro things, I would look at probably a laser, maybe even 10K or better. But for now, we're just going to stick with this 5500 lumen, and we're going to see how this works. So if we take our 5500 lumens divided by our screen surface area, we should get about 88 foot lamberts on that screen, which is way more than we need, which is good. But you're probably not working with a screen that small when you're doing this, okay? So don't get too excited. The SMPTE group says that we should have a minimum of 16 foot lamberts in a dark room. And obviously, the more ambient light you have, the more lamberts you need.
Right.
So I would say we want to be somewhere in the 20 to 40 range. And again, that really depends on how much ambient light there is. So when selecting a projector, it's better to have more than you need because you can always dim it down, but it's really hard to make it brighter. Once you run out of output, you run out of output. Mm-hmm. Brighter images are going to help, with contrast and that sort of thing. At some point, you're not going to overcome direct sunlight, though. I think a video wall is probably what you're going to want to use. If you have to do one during the day, moral of the story, let's just hope you don't.
Yeah, that doesn't work too terribly well.
Right. So now let's say if we go to a screen that is 20 feet wide. So the screen is twice as wide, but of course that doesn't mean it's going to decrease our foot Lamberts by half because our screen has 4 times the area.
Yep,
so a 20 foot wide screen is going to be 11.25 feet tall for a square footage surface area of 225 square feet. So at that point now, our foot Lamberts would be 21, which is, again, in that acceptable range with a low light, very low ambient light or dark environment. So in a dark environment, we could get by with that 5,500 lumen projector. Again, more is better if you can, but that will definitely get you rolling. All right, just to recap how we figured that out. Square footage of the screen, the ANSI lumens divided by the square footage of the screen equals our foot Lamberts. I think I'm going to tee up the whiteboard here and we'll just have some fun with this. Let's see. Go whiteboard.
I see it. Yep, we are good.
Okay. All right. Go the nice dark blue there. Okay, so there we have it. All right. And I'll just put my examples down here. And this is a 16:9 aspect ratio, which if we need to talk about some aspect ratios, we certainly can. That is 56.7 square feet. So our 5,500 lumen projector divided by let's make this so approximately 88 feet. Or excuse me, 88 foot Lamberts.
So for these mobile applications, like what Big Earn is doing, by the way, Big Earn just mentioned, of course, stacking 2 identical projectors.
Who did?
And Big Earn.
Oh, he's watching.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, awesome. Well, crap. Pressure's on. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So all those, be someone who's going to check your numbers and check your.
He should just be doing this show. So stacking projectors is another thing, and that is a definitely good way to do this. Kind of a key factor there is to make sure that they are easy to be aligned precisely, particularly when you're talking about high definitions. If those pixels aren't in alignment, it's going to create a blurry image. So that is, and there are in fact stacking frames and things that are designed to do that very, very well. All right. Here we can see.
Is stacking a skill or an art?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. We'll just go ahead and leave the whiteboard up.
Somebody said your math was off, that it should be about 90, in the 90, 97 instead of the 88.
I wonder where my math is off then.
Yeah. Which, yeah.
You know what? I apologize. I was using a 5,000 lumen projector when I did these notes earlier, so you are correct. So good catch. You know what? That was a test to see if our viewers were actually listening.
And they just came back and said a 5,000 lumen projector would be equaling 88. So look at that.
And that is in fact what I used earlier. I apologize. So good catch, viewers. That was, like I said, just a test to see if you were paying attention. So yes, it was a 5,000 lumen projector, but the 5,500 comes from the EH515T, which I do like. Embarrassingly enough, I remember why I chose 5,000 because, again, it had more zeros in it, and I wanted to make this easy. So
easy math, yes.
I do apologize. I have been doing the work of 3 people today due to us being a little bit shorthanded, and then having that show, I kind of thumb sketched this real quick. So good. We can all learn this together, including me. I'll just learn it right with you. How about that? Let's see how I do on projection distance. That's even more complicated than the foot Lamberts. How's this for area? Is it okay if I leave this up here,
no,
John?
that's fine. Yep, we've got the screen. It looks good, and I think they can all see it. Obviously, they can see it well enough to correct your math. And they're wondering why you wouldn't serve ice cream at your movie theater. They think your theater stinks.
Because I don't want to share.
No, well, see, now there's a good reason that I think we can all get behind.
Oh, come on. Trying to make this a different color. I'm trying to be creative and artsy here.
Somebody mentions that they love their 5,000 or 5,500 lumen projector. They lets them start their movie about 10 to 15 minutes before sunset. So
yeah, and you know what? Let's jump away from the whiteboard for a second because I want to show you some things that Big Earn does, and so grateful he gave me permission to share these because it is pretty awesome. I just love what he did, and I'm really grateful that he is willing to share that with the rest of the community. So big ups to him. So here you go. You should see this picture again. He's doing these backyard events. They're small. They're plentiful. There's lots of backyards. You can also avoid some of the licensing concerns, I think. Mm-hmm. And you can see here while the process is getting underway and people are getting their popcorn and they're coming in, he's created a custom welcome slide for them. Here's a little bit closer view, maybe. There you go. So again, what a cool idea. Mm-hmm. Big ups. Big ups. Another idea I had, and you can pay me commission on this, would be possibly if the people that are putting on the event are struggling to find the funding in a bigger setting, you could sell ads that you could run at the beginning, just like any movie theater does. So no shame in stealing an idea that's already been stolen.
Yeah, precisely.
All right, let's go back to my whiteboard. And here we can see, let's talk about projection distance.
Yep.
I'm going to use a couple projectors that I really like. Let's start with that EH515T. And that has a lens ratio of 1.2 to 2.16. And this seems to always kind of confuse people where they say, wow, what do those numbers mean? It's a goofy number. I don't understand it. As much as I love sounding really smart and helping people and they think that I'm just conjuring up magic, I'm going to show you that this is basically the same math you learned in 8th grade and that you too can do it. So let's say that our distance is known at 10 feet. Our width is known at 10 feet, not our distance. And we're talking about the screen width, not the diagonal or the height. Okay. So let's just, I keep losing my tool palette here. For clarification. We are talking about width. All right, now of course there is also the diagonal measurement, which is typically how we measure screens when we're talking about screen size, but that's not what we're using for this math. We're only talking about the width.
Okay.
And I will explain why aspect ratio is really important to know in a minute. We'll talk about 4:3 as pertains to 16:9. I don't know why, honestly, because none of you are showing anything in 4:3, right?
Not so much anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't think, but just in case.
Well, maybe I'm showing my old Abbott and Costello videos. Who's on first?
I mean, yeah, that stuff would all be 4:3.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just assume that our width is 10 feet. So what this is going to tell us is that our projection distance can range. This lens can zoom, and this is very easy math because I used a 10. That's why I did it, right?
Yep.
So it's going to be 12 feet to 21.6 feet. Okay, very simple. Now, you would say, okay, And if your distance changes, then your math changes. But we can see to solve for that, all we did was take the ratio times our width to solve for D, right? Like I said, same algebra you learned in 8th grade. Nothing scary about this. We've done way worse things with the audio on this show. So you can look at those formulas if you want something harder. Now you might say, well, I don't have 12 foot of projection distance. That projection distance has to come from one of two places, either front or rear. Bear in mind, by the way, you're going to want more lumens, and again, that foot Lambert number we talked about, you're going to want more lumens if you are rear projecting because of the way that the screen is transmitting that light forward. And really, even coming from the front, we have to think about screen gain. The higher the screen gain number, the more narrow that viewing angle is going to be. So they tend to have a compromise. Anyway, bottom line, this could be very easily like a 3-hour show if we get into some of the nuances. So we're going to kind of keep it simple here. And if we have questions, we can jump right into it. Yep. I have no problem at all. I mean, let's be honest, at 10 o'clock at night, I don't really have anything else better to do. So. So now we're going to look at a short throw model, the EH515 TST. And by the way, those that are wondering, the T in here stands for HD base T, which we've talked about in previous shows. It allows for long distance transmission of your HDMI signal over a Cat5. It's built right into this particular model of projector. This projector sadly is discontinued, but we do have a couple left, and I mean like a handful. So I don't know exactly how many that is, but this is a very cool feature. You can extend up to 300 feet on good cable. I know you know this, John, because we did this for your show.
Yeah, yep, and it worked wonderfully. Using that technology.
So now it does. Yeah, that's a cool thing. That's what I like about it. Is it just works. By and large, you just plug it in and it works. The HD base T chips are pretty robust and solid. And we did a show on that a while back. Yep. I don't remember when, but viewers jump back in the archives. So what we'll notice about this short throw projector is there's no longer a range. It's 0.79. That's your your lens ratio right there. That's what you get. There is no more zoom on this projector. So if you want to change the distance, you have to move the projector. Whereas here we can kind of zoom anywhere in between this range. We could make that 10-foot screen work. So what we can see here though is if we take our screen again. This whiteboard is a challenge because I can't see the cursor. I have to kind of guess where it's at. So now our projection distance would be 7.9 feet. So we are substantially shorter than we were previously in the 12 to 21.6. Now, let's say that you wanted to get, let's say you wanted to go really short. We could use something like a ultra short throw, and I'm going to change colors for this one. And with everything, pros and cons, but let's say we have a fictional UST projector ultra short throw that has a 0.25 ratio. Our projection distance is now 2.5 feet. So we could still fill that 10-foot wide image, but from a distance of 2.5 feet as opposed to 12 feet or 7.9 feet. This is where, when shopping for a projector or some of the higher end laser models that we talked about, they will have swappable lenses. This is if you want to do this pro and you want to attract those clients and you want to really kind of invest in this. Because I'll tell you, the lenses for those projectors cost more than the projectors we just talked about. Yeah. So you're gonna it's a totally different bunch of money. Instead of spending $1,500, you're gonna spend $15,000. But now you have the ability to swap lenses. Today I need a standard throw. Tomorrow I need a short throw. The day after that I need a long throw, and we can just swap those lenses and keep using the same hardware. All right, that was the fastest I've gone through this in history. Real quick, let's just talk about 4.3 as opposed to 16.9. And I'm going to think for a minute how I want to do that.
Well, I got a couple of questions here.
Good. Do that while I think about how I want to do this.
Yeah, because that'll really work well as I'm asking you a question in which I'm going to require you to give me an answer whilst you're thinking about what you're going to do there. Yeah, this sounds like a formula for success.
I think I can do this.
Okay. So HDMI length, and we did talk about this on other shows. What is the when it comes to HDMI length? When should one be considered about getting into the loss of picture quality?
A couple things on that. First of all, my wife and I changed HDMI cables on our TV in our house. The cable is 3 feet long, and we went from something cheap and crappy that we had laying around when we had moved last summer, and it was the first one we found. And I wasn't happy. And so I went and got one from the office, got a good one, and I brought it home, and, no big deal, whatever, just swapped it out real quick, 3 feet long. And my wife said, "Am I crazy, or is that picture brighter?" I said, "I thought so too." It surprised me, honestly. I'll just admit openly, it surprised me that at a distance of 3 feet, it made it that much of a difference.
Wow.
And it probably had more to do with the quality of the cable, and HDMI is not a one-to-one thing. There are lots of different options as well within HDMI. How many pins are wired and what things are carried. It can carry Ethernet and all kinds of fun things with it. So it's clearly there was something different between those two cables in terms of the quality of the cable and the signal it was carrying, that the image got brighter and clearer. As a general rule, I don't like to run HDMI over 25 feet. We talked about that a bit in our show that with the HD Base T. It's a really good watch, viewers. 50 feet would be the absolute most, and that's going to be on a really, really good cable, particularly as we move into the realm of 4K. Ultimately, we just have to break it down basically to data, into gigabits of data. So I really don't like to go longer than 25 feet if I can help it. 50 at the absolute top end most. Whereas with HD Base T, you could go upwards of 500 feet on some of them extended range versions. And on all but the lowest class chips, you can go, 100 feet, 150 feet.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a whole different, situation there.
Mm-hmm. And then somebody asked about the T, what the T meant on the projector, which you hit that one earlier. So, okay. What are we up to? 4.3. Yep.
So, key here is native aspect ratio of the projector. So if I'm using a native 16:9 projector to project a 4:3 image, my image has to actually be bigger because it will just truncate these side parts here, which means that my vertical height has to be taller. In order to make my vertical height taller, it has to be wider with space we're just not going to use. The image outside the blue lines left and right, it's just not going to be used. Mm-hmm. So take, for example, our 7.9 foot example. Mm-hmm. If we were doing that in 4:3, that number then changes to 10.5 feet. So we've lost some of the effective usable space for the image. But again, I can't imagine we're doing a lot of 4:3 images these days. So
unless it's a really old movie, I suppose, would be about the extent of it.
Yeah. In which case, if your screen is 16:9, you would still just fill the vertical space of the screen. You'd have some unused space left and right. So that would be, I guess, let me clarify. I was saying that if my width remained 10 feet, that'll probably confuse some people this here. So let's just say that if my width remained 10 feet, now you can see.
Yeah, you'll be losing the top and the bottom if you extend it out to fill the screen left and right.
Apparently you can't nudge with the whiteboard, so I'll just do it with the mouse. So here we can see what I mean there. If I was doing, and this is not really, to scale 4:3, but you get the idea where it would have to be, more vertical space to make that width on a 4:3 screen. Hopefully we didn't lose some viewers there. You know what? Just sit down with a pencil and you'll figure it out. The show is free, okay? The show is free.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about projectors at the 5,000 roughly lumen. Getting into a bigger screen, the 20-foot screen, we should be looking at probably closer to a 10,000 lumen projector to really have a something that's going to pop. Sound outside. Let's touch on that just a little bit.
Sure. I just want to put a bow on what you just said a second ago about the projectors. Here's an easy way, viewers. It's such a stock answer I give, but it's true. message me. Just drop me a line and let's talk about the size of your screen, the size of your budget, what you really want to do. Believe me, I'm not above giving you hard news. I'm not shy. I've told more than one person, look, just don't do it. If you're not going to spend the money, you're not going to be happy with that result. On the other hand, I've told a lot of people, yeah, I think you're going to be just fine with those 5,500 lumen projectors. At the end of the day, I just want to give you an honest answer, because if you're going out and you're having success and you're doing well with this, that's going to make you a much better customer. So let's have honest dialogue for your specific situation. Sound. Couple things here. Big Earn, he's using the Evolve and loving it. We're not worried about, full 5.1 theater surround here, 7.1, whatever. We're not worried about that. I think typically just left, right sound is adequate, for the experience for what we're doing. That's not to say that you can't do that. You certainly could. If you want to have a 5.1 decoder and set up lots more speakers or whatever, hey, more power to you. I'm not telling you not to. I'm just saying, I don't think that's what clients are paying for. Those of us who are old enough to remember the actual drive-in movies, we had one speaker and it sat in the door and it sounded like an AM radio.
Yep.
So, this is a substantial upgrade anyway. But that's for a backyard situation. If you're doing an outdoor drive-in theater, you either need a lot of horsepower on your PA, or more likely you need an FM transmitter. And that's what almost everybody is using. And by the way, we have them back in stock.
Wow.
I know. I feel like people were trading kidneys for these things, and we actually have some on the shelf now. Parts shortage. The world was just not prepared for, normally you sell 2 a year, and now we're selling 200 a day, whatever. So a couple things about FM transmitters. Try to avoid the cheap, crappy Chinese ones. I have nothing against China, but I'll say that the ones that you're finding there probably operate in a power rating that is not permissible in the US. You are breaking a law. The FCC does care about these laws. 2, they tend to be very noisy. They tend to pollute the airwaves basically with radio noise. So they're not very, the ones I've seen, that's not to say that they're all bad, but it's kind of one of those get what you pay for things. And the ones we have are not expensive. And I'm not saying you have to only buy ours, but I'm just saying I've seen some of these ones that are on, the interwebs, and they're not good. More to the point, they're not legal.
Yeah. What kind of a distance though can you get from the ones that are legal to use here?
Here's where the answer gets complicated, because as we've talked about with wireless microphones, RF is always environmental. And by the way, wireless microphones operate as an FM signal. They don't operate in the FM radio band, but the frequency modulation that they use, that's what FM stands for, is pretty much the same. The signal modulated on a carrier, right? So as we know with our wireless mics, range is never constant. Same with this. Here's the answer, sort of.
Sort of.
The FCC says, in compliance with Part 15, unlicensed device should go a max of about 200 feet. So the ones that we sell that comply with Part 15 are 4 milliwatt. So if you have a unit that's a watt, guaranteed it's not legal. You are operating a radio station. You literally are now pirate radio at that point. Guaranteed. There's no way you could win that argument with the FCC. You're going to lose it every time. No way you're going to win that argument. Zero chance. Now, we've had customers who've bought ours that are 4 milliwatt that comply with Part 15, and they have had success using them at 500 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Again, depending upon terrain and all the different.
They've also, they can fail at less than 200 feet. It comes down to, signal to noise, have a clean channel, and you definitely should have a clean channel. You are never going to win against a commercial radio station. But pick something in the, FM band that's quiet. You could actually just use your FM radio to kind of listen, see what's quiet, and get your antenna up high. Same rules we talk about with wireless mics, same type of signal propagation. And I think, and I realize I'm going on the record as saying this, and I have no authority to say this on behalf of the FCC, and I guess they can send me a nasty gram if I've misspoke. But when you have a device that inherently complies, if it goes 500 feet accidentally, I just don't see them making that much of an issue about it. I think I can't see how they could be upset because you've made an effort to comply. You bought a U.S. made legal device. In other words, I feel like I could win that argument. If I was the person on site and I do have one of these and the FCC came, I'd be like, come on, man, you know how radio waves work. I mean, it's like a cat. You can't keep them in the yard, So not my cat anyway. So there it is. There's the definition is it's not supposed to go more than 200 feet. A 4 milliwatt device certainly should be not an issue for compliance. A 1 watt, you're going to go a lot further than 500 feet, and you definitely run the risk of being angering flagged. Those in charge.
Okay, so we've talked projectors, we talked screens a little bit, we've talked audio. Is there anything else on our notes that we need to know?
Let me consult the notes I took from Big Ern.
Big Ern's been mentioning he booked a Dave Matthews 2018 live concert, doing a showing with the 5.1 sound in the backyard.
Nice. I told you should have had him do the show.
There's just so many, and he mentions the options. There's the imagination, to create experiences like that for people is obviously.
And gaming nights, I know, have been a big deal for him. Again, in that smaller setting, you could do that. And, if you have 100 cars driving in, I don't think people really want to watch, 2 people play a game. But, in a smaller setting like that, I think you could do that. So I think it really depends on who your client is. In the bigger setting, your clients are going to be organizations, municipalities, casinos, that sort of thing. The smaller setting, obviously, you have a lot more options. By the way, I love Big Ern. We're pals. You should never have us do a show together, though, unless you want the entire time to be Star Wars. So
we did one of those once, and that was our one Star Wars specific show.
He's my guy. He's there's a few friends that came to mind actually that if we all got together, it could be really interesting. And maybe that's just my way of saying I miss people. I miss us being able to get together.
Yeah.
So when the time comes, we're going to be getting together and nerding Star Wars.
There we are. So, we're going to wrap things up then, Ben. Gang, we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back. Jay and Brian are in the wings, ready to go tonight, and we'll get to that show. It'll be starting at about 11 o'clock Eastern, so hang on for that. Ben, thanks for putting together some information for us on creating that drive-in theater experience. Thank you guys for being with us. We'll catch you later. Bye.